What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. So it happened again, folks. Another judge rules that a Louisiana election for sheriff is null and void after the losing candidate files a lawsuit challenging the election, saying that there were people voting in person and by mail. So now another election will take place. Man, this is big news out of Louisiana, and it's big news for so many reasons. And we're going to get into those reasons in just a little bit, but I want to go ahead and read this article, hat tip to Revolver News. This just came out 16 hours ago. It says things certainly got intense in a Louisiana sheriff election with just one vote separating the two candidates. The razor-thin margin prompted a recount, but oddly enough, it yielded no changes. This prompted Cato sheriff candidate and former Republican councilman John Nicholson to file a lawsuit for a new runoff, and he emerged victorious. Interestingly, the judge uncovered illegal votes that the initial recount had overlooked, underscoring the shortcomings of these so-called recounts. MAGA warrior Scott Pressler was elated when he heard the news and couldn't wait to share it on X. He said, quote, "This is a huge victory for our side, and it reassures us that there are still judges out there who prioritize the integrity of our elections." As soon as the judge saw the illegal votes, he wasted no time voiding out the election. And here is the local news piece from KTLA News over there in Louisiana. It says, retired Louisiana Supreme Court Justice E. Joseph Blake ruled Tuesday that the results of the election for Cato Parish Sheriff are void. In the November 18 runoff election, Henry Whitehorn defeated candidate John Nicholson by a single vote. When the recount occurred, officials found 3 additional votes for each candidate, and Whitehorn remained 1 vote ahead of his opponent. Nicholson filed a lawsuit challenging the results and requested a special election. He said the process was rushed and unlawful votes were cast in the election. Multiple people were found to have voted both by mail and in person. In a brief submitted to the First Judicial District Court, Whitehorn asserted, quote, "The judiciary should not decide elections. Louisiana courts have made it clear that the results of an election are to be disturbed only under extraordinary circumstances, where a plaintiff introduces compelling evidence that is sufficient to change the results in the election." 4 judges recused themselves from the case due to their friendship with Nicholson. The Louisiana Supreme Court assigned the case to Justice Blake. On December 5th, he ruled the runoff election results are void and ordered a new runoff election. Whitehorn's team is likely to appeal the decision. In his ruling, Justice Blake stated, quote, "This runoff election involved a 1-vote margin. It was proven beyond any doubt that there were at least 11 illegal votes cast and counted. It is legally impossible to know what the true vote should have been." As Scott Pressler correctly points out, Republicans must head into this new election with an all-hands-on-deck mindset and mobilize the vote for Mr. Nicholson, who embodies the law and order values that the good people of Cato, Louisiana truly deserve. This is excellent news. The good guys scored a win. Boom. Yep. This, like I said, this is big news for so many reasons. And really, it just confirms a lot. It just confirms a lot of what we already know. First of all, we're starting to learn that judges can void elections if they have the courage. You know, this was something else that happened in a Connecticut election where a Democrat got caught stuffing the ballot box with tons of ballots. A judge ruled that there should be another election, and the guy who got caught cheating, he ended up winning that election. It still resulted in the same outcome, but still, at least the election was secure. At least people had integrity in the results. What happened in 2020 is a disaster, and this country cannot move on until we get to the bottom of what happened. Because even today, the majority of Americans, based off Pew Research polls, don't trust our elections. Whether it's Republicans and conservatives that think Donald Trump got cheated out of that election, or whether it's Democrats that think Donald Trump's going to cheat in this election. You just don't have people that trust our elections anymore. So regardless of what you think, it doesn't matter. When the majority of Americans think that the elections are no longer secure and no longer have integrity, you got a problem. And the only way The only way we are going to be able to move on as a country is if we go back and find out what exactly happened in 2020. Not only that, but we must secure our future elections. We cannot have elections like this, folks, where we have people voting for weeks and months. You have states counting ballots for a month until we get the results. You have media outlets calling races before the election's even done. That happened in 2020. And then not only that, but what Donald Trump did is no different than what these people did. The candidates in Connecticut and now the candidates here in Louisiana. Unfortunately, though, the judges overseeing all his cases didn't have the courage enough to do what needed to be done, which was void that election and hold another election, period. If they would have done that, I'm telling you right now, the world would be a much, much different place today. Because I think if they would have held another election, the Democrats would not have had time to run up another cheating scam. It was possible, to sit there and say that there's no way you can have another election. Well, we're going to have to get used to it if they don't secure these elections. Because every single election now, people are going to be questioning, and you're going to be having challenges. What Donald Trump did by challenging the 2020 election is not illegal. It is not illegal to file lawsuits to overturn an election. It is not illegal to challenge an election, and that's exactly what Democrats are trying to criminalize. They're trying to criminalize challenging elections, and you can't do that. It's unsustainable. It is actually tyrannical. It's like we're living in some type of authoritarianism. Oh, we don't trust the election results, so we're going to challenge it. That's illegal? So, yeah, we won the election, and you're not allowed to challenge it or ask any questions. Whoa, wait a minute. Like, that is something out of George Orwell's 1984 novel, but not here in the United States. And so, this is big news for a lot of reasons. One, I just told you about the judges. They do have the ability. Okay, they do have the ability to void elections when there's enough courage, when they have enough courage. Another one is Donald Trump isn't the only person to ever challenge an election. It's clear and obvious from the Connecticut election to now this Louisiana election that challenging elections is actually quite common. You have election challenges in almost every single election. Unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi, in collusion with the United States government, the FBI, and our intel agencies orchestrated a false flag operation to be conducted against the American people so that the certification of the 2020 election would be forced through. That's how I look at what happened on January 6th. I don't look at it as they were failed challenges by Donald Trump. I look at it as a successful operation of Nancy Pelosi certifying the votes that day, certifying the election. Because after January 6th and the riot, everybody went immediately right back into the Capitol and pushed that election through and certified it. Nancy Pelosi got exactly what she wanted. And maybe it wasn't Nancy directly, but the Democrats as a whole. The party got exactly what they wanted. They got a fraudulent election certified. Well, what appeared to be fraudulent, you had an election where you had election challenges still in the courts. You had a lot of things happening. You had congressmen and women in there challenging the votes, challenging the certification. And Nancy Pelosi and her little stunt that she orchestrated with the intel agencies and the DNC managed to force those certifications through. Exactly what they wanted to do. And so, look, Donald Trump isn't the only person to ever challenge an election, and he's not going to be the last person challenging an election. So the fact that all these Republicans across the country are being persecuted, indicted, and imprisoned for challenging an election is insane. It is insane. It is like some stuff straight out of the Soviet Union. And one last reason why it's such big news is that we know ballot recounts just confirm already bunk elections. If you're going to just recount the fraudulent ballots, then you're going to get the same fraudulent results. The recount process in these states must be reformed. Must be reformed because if you're going to cheat in an election, once you get the ballot counted, it's there. Like, so when you do a recount, all you're doing is just recounting the same fraudulent election. So, of course, you're going to get the same results. And that's exactly what I think is happening. And then this whole mail-in ballot and voting in person, how are you supposed to stop something like that? This is the problem with our elections, because you don't want to federalize your elections. I mean, you certainly don't want the government overseeing the election process. While at the same time, some of these states have such egregious election processes that you can't trust them. Like Pennsylvania, each state has different laws. Like Pennsylvania, you had people stuffing pizza boxes in the windows so people couldn't watch the counters. You had another state that kicked ballot watchers, ballot observers out of the room, out of the building, so that they couldn't watch the ballots being counted. Like all these things and all these abnormalities and these very, very questionable actions by the Democrat Party during that election just throws a huge question mark on the whole damn thing. And this is why we can't move on as a country until we get to the bottom of what happened in 2020, period. And unfortunately, the only way we're going to get to the bottom of it is if Donald Trump's in office, because there's no way Democrats are going to investigate what happened during the 2020 election. And unfortunately, we have a bunch of feckless Republicans that they can't walk and chew gum at the same time. They're completely useless when they have power. They have no clue how to exercise power when they have it. None. And then half of them are essentially Democrats. So it's like the American people are screwed so many ways from Sunday, man. And one of the things that we need to make sure we do is we need to make sure that we elect Donald Trump into office so that he can start fixing these things. Donald Trump is a very actionable person. There is one thing that you could say a lot about the Trump administration and the shortcomings of his administration, but one thing you cannot rag on that administration for was actions taken. The guy was always getting something done. Whether you agree with it or not, he was very actionable. And so it was a breath of fresh air to actually see a president that stuck to his promises. He actually made promises and he kept them. Most of them, the ones that he could. The ones that he wasn't getting stabbed in the back by Democrats and Republicans for. So, like I said, big article, big news out of Louisiana, and Scott Presler, I'm sure, is extremely happy because this, once again, this just vindicates everything that we've been saying for the last almost 3 years. Well, 3 years now, is that judges should have been able to investigate and make rulings on the election. They could have voided the election, right? And I'm so sick of people saying that there was no evidence, that all these cases were denied by the courts. Yeah, when you have judges, the problem with 2020 is you had judges that did not have the courage. Why? Because they just watched a BLM and Antifa mob and burn down cities all across the country. You had so much, it was the pressure campaign we talk about on the show all the time. All these judges were under pressure. Which judge do you think in 2020 was willing to forfeit their job, their career that they've worked their whole lives to get? Which judge do you think would have stepped up and said, "Oh no, I don't like the look of this. I'm going to issue another election"? What do you think would have happened to that judge? Democrats would have destroyed them, probably impeached them, kicked them out of their office. Who knows what they would have done? Look at Justice Kavanaugh. He almost got assassinated, for God's sakes, by some Antifa or BLM radical. So, again, the Democrats are extremely good at these pressure campaigns, and expect the same thing in 2024. We are going to need some judges that show some real courage. And that's one thing that was lacking in 2020, but it does look like, we have some judges around there that prioritize the integrity of our elections over themselves. And just like Scott Presler said, this is a big wake-up call for Republicans. If you take action and you mobilize for our elections, things can get done. Things can be fixed and get better. But since Democrats changed all our election laws during the pandemic, the only way you're going to be able to fix them is you're going to have to win first. So you're going to have to play by the Democrats' rules in order to win, and then you can go in and change some of the stuff. But unless we're willing to federalize the elections, which I am absolutely not for doing, then it's going to be hard to get these states to make changes. The only way you're going to get election changes, broad, sweeping election changes to add integrity, to secure our elections, just like they used to be pre-2020 for the most part. I mean, we were having election day and not election month or election quarter. The only way you're going to be able to do that is by winning Republican majorities in these states. Republican houses, Republican senates, and then each individual state can fix their election laws. That's it. That's the only way to do it. They're not going to hand over the keys to this country easily. They've built the most powerful country on the face of the planet ever in human history. You think the Washington establishment's just going to hand over the keys to the people? Hell no. They're going to be fighting like rabid animals, cornered, trapped and cornered. They're not going to be giving this place up easily. So it's not going to be easy. And it's going to be tough, and we're going to hit some rough spots. But this isn't one of those spots. I actually see this being a positive story. It actually gave me hope that there are judges out there that do have the courage enough to void elections when they see there's an issue. And it's not like he just made it it's not like he just made it up off the top of his head. The candidate produced the evidence that showed that there were more votes that there should have been. There was 11 more votes that were cast that should have been there. And that came from people voting by mail and voting in person. What system do we have in place to prevent that from happening? None that I know of. So why wouldn't it be impossible for Democrat states or for states in general to send out ballots all across the state to every single mailbox, just like they did in 2020, these mass mail-in ballots, and then somebody vote by mail, and then on that same day that they mail their vote in, go to the polls and vote in person? Like, what is to prevent people from doing that? The only way you're going to be able to stop this type of cheating when it comes to mail-in ballots is to stop mail-in ballots. That is it. It is one day of voting in person with voter ID. This is the way we've done things forever. But when you have mass mail-in ballots like we did in the 2020 election, I think it's clear and obvious how the Democrats won in 2020. And it wasn't because they had more votes. It's they had more ballots. And how they did that was just this mass mail-in ballot tactic. Just send ballots all across the country. And then you decrease the signature verification. And you remove all the guardrails that were set in place to add extra layers of security and integrity in those elections. So they did the exact opposite of what you would want to do if you want to improve the integrity of your elections. They sent ballots all over the place, out to everybody, to every mailbox, and then they reduced signature verification and the rules and guardrails to protect the integrity of those ballots. So they did everything backwards. And then a week after investigating, maybe not even a week, days, you had, I think his name is Krebs. He came out and said that was the most safe and secure election in U.S. history. You got Bill Barr that comes out and says he didn't see any widespread voter fraud. Dude, when you're talking about 42,000 votes that separated Donald Trump from Joe Biden, you don't need widespread voter fraud. 42,000 votes? That's nothing. It was 42,000 votes from 3 or 4 different key states. You don't have to have widespread voter fraud. And because Bill Barr did not have the ability or was not willing to dig deeper and actually investigate what happened in the 2020 election, we have this. You have a massive portion of this country that no longer trusts our election process, that no longer trusts our democratic process. And so what do you get? Every single election, there's going to be challenges. And if the Democrats get their way, anybody that challenges the election is going to be arrested and imprisoned for challenging that election. That is straight up Soviet Union style, George Orwell's 1984 authoritarianism. That's what that is. You can't challenge an election. And so every single election, there's going to be challenges, and the challenges are only going to come from one side, the Democrats. So Democrats are going to be the only one challenging elections because Republicans are going to be too scared of being locked up into prison for Democrats persecuting them or coming after them for challenging the election. It's insane what we're watching happen. And so there's 2 things that we know for sure, is that Democrats, they want mass mail-in ballots, they want unsecure elections, they want longer and longer voting periods, so they don't want election day, they want election month, all right? And we also know that they're trying to criminalize politics. They're trying to criminalize challenging elections so that they can do exactly what they did in 2020 with BLM and Antifa. If you challenge the election, if you're a judge that voids an election, they will send the mob after you. And who knows, maybe somebody in that mob just may just climb in your window and try and assassinate your whole family like what happened to Brett Kavanaugh. And so because of that pressure campaign that Democrats will mount against anybody that challenges the election, you're going to have Republicans that are too scared to throw any challenges. You're going to have people too afraid to question the elections. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a one-way ticket to authoritarianism. Because what if there's anomalies? What if there's abnormalities? What if there's actual cheating? Democrats are just going to scare everybody out of challenging those elections? So they just win every time? This is insane. Not only that, but the way Democrats are criminalizing the way Democrats are weaponizing the justice system against their political rivals, you're not even going to have Republicans running for president. They're going to be too scared. You think somebody's going to want to run against a Democrat and risk getting thrown in prison for 700 years like Donald Trump with a weaponized FBI and a DOJ? Yeah, right. I mean, there's so many things and so much damage that Democrats are causing this country. So much bad precedent that Democrats are setting. So come the next election, do you think anybody's going to go to the Capitol and petition their government? Do you think anyone's going to go to the Capitol and protest the next election? Well, Democrats certainly will, but Republicans won't. Why is that? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because of the thousands of Republicans that are being jailed right now in the D.C. gulag. Washington, D.C., their nation's capital, that looks like the next Stalingrad? So the only people that are going to be challenging elections and mounting pressure campaigns is going to be Democrats. And so therefore, it's going to be Democrats the only ones winning elections. Look, I don't want to sit there and try and say that I can predict the future. All I can do is just tell you the patterns I'm recognizing. It's pattern recognition. You can see the events that have taken place. You can see what the Democrats have done up until this point, and you can come to a highly probable conclusion. Democrats, they have a mission in everything they do. They're setting bad precedent. They're breaking constitutional norms. They're trying to criminalize politics. They're trying to criminalize challenging elections. They mount pressure campaigns against their opposition. They weaponize the justice system against their political rivals. This is what they do. I mean, we're watching it take place right now. They don't want secure elections. They don't want in-person voting with voter ID laws. They want mass mail-in ballots. They want ballot harvesting. They want all these things. They want a less secure election, period. If they could, they would allow people to just vote from their phone. They don't care because they know that they own the system. When you create the chaos, you control the chaos, the Cloward and Piven tactic. These people are diabolical, man. What we're watching from the Democrat Party right now is egregious. We say this all the time. We have never, ever in this country's history, I've never even read about it in this nation's history, had a party as destructive as the Democrat Party. This party is the most destructive political force this nation has ever seen. And it's not even the Democrats per se. I think it's the globalists that have control of the Democrat Party through money. Places like BlackRock and Vanguard, they own the politicians. And because the globalists own the politicians, they can control what the politicians do. You know, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, all these people are owned by donors and special interests. That's it. And so if they want something done, they got all these politicians on a leash. So in reality, it's the globalists that are controlling everything. And that's exactly why we're seeing such extreme changes. We're watching such extreme shifts of the Overton window. These people are trying to normalize things that never should be normal in a country, but yet somehow we just accept them as normal, like 2-month election periods. Ballot stuffing. You have a party that has weaponized the justice system to prevent a leading candidate from winning an election. You have different states that are trying to remove the candidate from the ballot. Nothing screams democracy more than a state trying to remove a candidate from a ballot. And they're using it. Listen, we go in, we talk about this all the time. We can go in so deep with what the Democrats have done in the last 8 years. It's insane. And the only reason why they do it is because they haven't been held accountable for their actions. You had one FBI lawyer, one that did probation for fabricating an official government document to say something that it didn't say. That was that Kleinsmith, that FBI lawyer. So after being found guilty, after pleading guilty to fabricating an official government document, after doctoring an official government document, he got probation and he now has his law license back. So this guy's right back into the circulation, probably planning on doing the same thing that he had to do in the Russia collusion hoax. These people, this is the deep state. I hate the fact that Democrats they don't understand what the deep state is. And we talk about it all the time on the show. The deep state, it's not some mythical cabal of people that like a unicorn that no one's ever found. The deep state is the bureaucracy of the Washington swamp. It is the people behind the scenes, controlling the entire damn operation, controlling our entire capital. They are the puppet masters of our government. And the puppet masters are places like BlackRock and Vanguard, Larry Fink, probably some Chinese Communist Party members, the people that go to the World Economic Forum, the globalists control our government, George Soros. Like, all these people have a role to play. And this is why you're seeing such drastic changes in our country. You know, politics is supposed to be boring. Congress is supposed to be boring. We're not supposed to be seeing broad, sweeping changes like this. I mean, $33 trillion in debt? There's no way you can be this bad on accident. Everything that's happened in this country the last 8 years is purposeful. They want to destroy Donald Trump because they fear him. They are terrified that he is going to come in and he's going to expose their whole damn corrupt operation. And he's going to bring the whole corrupt temple down on their heads. It's not the American people that should fear Donald Trump. It is the Washington corrupt deep state establishment that fears Donald Trump, not the people. Not the people. This stupid narrative, this stupid talking point, it's essentially what they're trying to do with the whole Donald Trump is going to be a dictator narrative. It's a pretty stupid narrative that you have to just laugh at. But there's a lot of people that are easily manipulated by this talking point. I mean, these people fail to realize we already had Donald Trump for 4 years. They said the exact same stuff in the 2016 election, the exact same stuff. These people lie. They have nothing to run on. Joe Biden is a lame duck. He has nothing to run on. That's why you haven't heard the phrase Bidenomics in over a month, because they learned that people are onto their shtick. They're not buying what they're selling. And so the only way they're going to be able to get Joe Biden across the finish line is if they lie often, and hide the truth. That is it. And so what they're trying to do is create this stupid narrative that Donald Trump's going to be some dictator. Nobody should take this serious. That's why I didn't even do a show on it. I was going to talk about it last night. I refuse. I refuse to talk about the narrative that Donald Trump is going to be some stupid dictator, all right? We are watching what happens in a dictatorship right now. When you have a president that weaponizes the justice system against his political rivals, when you have a president that unilaterally spends money without congressional approval or congressional authorization, like with the student loan debt. You have a president that is using backdoor tactics in order to subvert the Constitution and change laws like the ATF and the pistol brace ban. That is subverting the Constitution with the whole women and men, or the men and women's sports Title IX, trying to undermine our Constitution by fiat, by a pen and a phone, just like Barack Obama said. That is what we're watching right now, is exactly what a dictatorship looks like, where you have an intel agency that works for the administrative state, that spies on Americans, that spies on the administrative state's political opponents. That is the FBI. When you have an FBI that inserts and orchestrates false flag operations against the American people in order to achieve an ultimate goal, like, I don't know, a J6 committee that created a J6 report that they're now using to try and remove Donald Trump from the ballot and throw him in prison for 700 years? Like, all these things happen in dictatorships, in authoritarian states, and that's exactly what we're watching. I'm not saying Biden is a dictator. I would probably this aligns more with an authoritarianism, because authoritarianism is a group of people that have all the power with police state powers. This is an authoritarian police state. These are the words that people need to start getting familiar with, because that's exactly what we're living in right now. And it will continue on if Joe Biden wins again. I guarantee it. This is the last stand. We have the Washington establishment up against the wall. We got them on the ropes, man. And we must make sure that we get our country back in 2024. These people are purposely trying to destabilize this country so that they can make their broad sweeping changes. This is the end game. We are in the end game right now. And the Washington establishment is not going to hand the keys over to this place easy. We got them on the ropes, right? This is their last stand. You are going to see things you have never seen before in your entire life in the run-up to this election. And calling Donald Trump a dictator and trying to get that narrative spread is one of those narratives, is one of those tactics. I cannot believe Sean Hannity's dumb ass even legitimized that narrative by asking Donald Trump that question at the town hall meeting. What an idiot. Seriously, what an idiot Sean Hannity is. I mean, the guy, why would you even ask that question? Is because he works for Fox News and the Murdochs. The Murdochs are globalists, all right? These people all work together. It is one giant effort to make sure the American people do not get their country back. They do not trust the American people running their own country. They don't. They don't trust the American people can make their own decision when electing a president. That's why they're trying to remove him from the ballot. They're afraid that the American people are going to elect Donald Trump, and they can't have that. There's no reason why anybody should fear Donald Trump. Donald Trump was one of the best presidents this country has ever seen. The United States had some of the best years it's seen in decades because of the Trump policies, because of the Trump administration. And to sit there and say that Donald Trump is going to be some type of dictator, as we're actually watching Joe Biden act closer to a dictator than we've ever seen. We're closer to fascism and authoritarianism now than we ever have in this country before at the egregious behaviors of this administration, the Biden administration. So nobody should buy it. Don't even give this narrative the time of day. Every time you see somebody talking on Twitter or TikTok or commenting on Facebook about how Donald Trump's going to be a dictator, just laugh at them. Just laugh at them. Do not give this narrative any legitimacy, any. Because it's one of their tools that they're going to use. I remember the exact moment when this happened, when Joe Scarborough on the Morning Blow show and Mika were talking about how Joe Biden needs to hit Donald Trump hard with the talking points and narratives. And that very next day, Joe Scarborough on the Morning Blow show came out with this Donald Trump's going to be a dictator narrative. You idiot. And if you really think about it, it's Joe Biden. It's the Biden administration and the Democrats that are destroying our democratic process. So imagine that. The people calling Donald Trump and trying to convince Americans that Donald Trump is going to be some type of dictator are actively and knowingly destroying our democratic process, colluding and coordinating with one another across state lines and within the federal system to kneecap a presidential candidate and Joe Biden's political rival by using a weaponized justice system and the tools and weapons we provided the intel agency with the Patriot Act, which is something else we're going to be talking about, Section 702 reform coming up, and why we should absolutely not reauthorize Section 702. So I just wanted to go ahead and get on here and tell you about this judge in Louisiana and how it is possible for judges to void elections if they have the courage. And so this should give people a lot of hope that the tides are changing out there, man. A perfect example is Eileen Cannon, the judge in Florida with the overlooking the Donald Trump documents case. She's on to their shtick, man. She sees exactly what they're trying to do, and she's not having none of it. None of it. She may just delay her trial till after the election. And that's exactly what needs to happen to every single one of these trials. You have Donald Trump in trial today in New York. with a judge and a Democrat judge, a radical Democrat judge that we know is a Democrat and has animosity towards Trump, and a radical Democrat attorney general that campaigned on getting Trump, is trying to strip Donald Trump, Joe Biden's chief political rival, of all his wealth that him and his family have created over multiple generations. If we're not living in authoritarianism with police state powers right now under the Biden administration, then I don't know what this is. But what we're watching from this administration is authoritarian. It is. And I think it's important for people to get used to these phrases and start using this when we're talking about the Biden administration. Call him a dictator because he's done some of the most dictatorial stuff we've ever seen from a president in a long time. I can't say ever because, but I'm telling you right now, we have not seen behavior like this from a presidential administration in a long time when it comes to spending, when it comes to subverting the rule of law, when it comes to subverting Congress and essentially prioritizing its own personal agenda over the demands of the American people. This government is not doing what the American people want. What the American people want and what the government is doing, there is no overlap there. There's none. The government's not doing anything the American people want. These people are trying to set themselves up to make sure they never lose another election and so that they continuously stay in power. That is it. That is all they're doing. That is the type of stuff of dictatorships and authoritarian regimes with police state power. That's what we're watching. And so people need to start using this type of rhetoric when talking about the Biden administration. This is authoritarianism, and we're living in it right now. And I think the whole narrative talking point that they're trying to push through with the media, you've seen all the hit pieces? It was all the major news outlets, Washington Post, The Atlantic, the New York Times, all the heavy hitters on the left, the Pravda, propaganda outlets, as we call them here on the show, all came out with articles on the exact same day with the exact same talking point that Donald Trump is going to be some type of dictator. Who is running this operation? Who is coordinating these media hit pieces like this? Who is it? That's what I want to know. Because once you figure out who is running this entire show, then you'll figure out the rest of the people that are controlling this place, the globalists. Who coordinated the media outlets' hit pieces with coordination with the cable media, the cable news outlets, the Pravda outlets, like CNN and MSNBC. This Donald Trump is going to be a dictator talking point. It only popped up the last 48 hours. And so they're hitting this narrative hard. Who is coordinating this? Once you figure that out, then you're going to know who's running this country. Because as of right now, it's not Joe Biden. Nobody can sit there and tell me it's Joe Biden running this country. Yeah, I mean, he may appear as if he's running the country, but this guy, you don't spend over 50% of your administration on Rehoboth Beach, on vacation, and still be running this country. It's impossible to be this bad on accident. All right, this is all purposeful. You do not have drastic changes like this on accident. You don't. This is all coordinated effort, and what I think is to purposely collapse the system so that they can replace it with their own little perfect utopia. So, again, I wanted to give you hope that in the run-up to the election, Republicans need to solidify about the election integrity in this country. They need to make sure they mobilize and start going into these key swing states and making sure Mark Elias and Perkins Coie aren't there trying to change our election laws again. And then you have to ask yourself this question about this epidemic coming from China. We talked about this too a couple weeks ago. I think this is going to be a big factor in this year's election. They're going to try and bring back another virus. They're going to try the same playbook they used in 2020. Why? Because they have to use mail-in ballots. The mail-in ballots is the key to their success on stealing and rigging elections. It is the key. The same type of stuff that happened in this Louisiana election and how you had people vote by mail and vote by person is exactly the type of chaos that the Democrats take advantage of. Create the chaos so that you control the chaos. And so they need a chaos agent. And I think it's the virus and this white lung stuff that's happening in China. I think it's their Trojan horse. I think it's their way to create the chaos again. Listen, I don't know if people are going to buy it. If we all of a sudden have this crazy, insane pandemic again, 6 months or 3 months before an election again, I think people are going to catch on. I don't think people are going to buy it. Who knows, man? Who knows? These people are so desperate, they're willing to do anything at this point. And so, all right, that's all I got for now. This went on way too long. I'm going to be recording another segment here in just a little bit. So make sure you tune into that. If you guys want to get a hold of me, StevenTauriello@gmail.com. If you could, follow the show on social media. Follow me on Rumble. Definitely follow me on Rumble. Follow me on YouTube. All you got to do is Google my name. You'll find the platform. If you could, I'd really appreciate it. Follow the show. It definitely helps our numbers. Also, if you could, I'd really appreciate it. Leave a review on the podcast in the comments. Leave a comment. I want to know what you guys think about the show. Let me know. And I'm going to be leaving this article in my podcast description so you guys can read it. It's a good article, but I read most of it to you already. But it's important to have this stuff. Read it so you know what's going on. And then share it with your friends and family. The only way we're going to win this election and get our country back in 2024 is if everybody is engaged and mobilized. When you go to vote, take 20 people with you. Take 5, take 6, take 7. Take as many people with you to go vote as possible. It's the only way we're going to outpace the margin of cheating in the 2024 election, which, listen, it's going to be insane. I'm telling you right now. So, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a good week. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.